Hello, good afternoon. This is Dr. Kamani, licensed clinical psychologist of Lifting as We Climb Consulting Wellness Services, where we focus on supporting individual and collective healing. So we have been having very lively conversations for the past few months, talking about ways to support Black women in toxic work experiences or environments. And so we are having these conversations for a number of reasons. Number one, so that we know that we're not alone in having these experiences. We as Black women have often encountered situations in which our worth is questioned or challenged. We've seen that and we've experienced that. And we wanted to provide a forum or a platform for Black women to be able to talk about, our experiences so we know that we're not alone, and that we also recognize that this is a problem across the world. So it's not just in certain areas of the country, it's around the world that Black women have disproportionate rates in terms of experiencing toxic work environments. And another reason that this platform is here and these conversations are here because we know that we need to be able to speak up and speak out about these experiences so that we know that we are not being silenced, because silence is a form of oppression. And so we are standing up and saying no more. This is not okay. This is not acceptable. And the last reason why we're having these conversations is to really remind all of us that healing is possible. So I'm having different guests on, different Black women on, to talk about their experiences in the toxic workplace or toxic work environment and ways that they have manifested healing, because that is so important for us to know that healing is possible. I know for me, it is healing for me to hear about other Black women who are also on this healing journey. It doesn't make me feel good that so many of us have had this experience. However, it is very encouraging to hear and doing whatever we can to heal. So we are having a guest on today, an additional guest today. And hello, Dr. Zerri. We have Dr. Zerri here with us today. And so, Dr. Zerri, I was just sharing with people about the reason for this platform in terms of providing a healing space for Black women who have encountered toxic work environments, and that we need to really emphasize that not only these things happen to us, but that we are healing, that we're not knocked down and forever knocked down. We are knocked down and we still get up, okay? But we need to be able to give voice to what has happened to us, because many times as Black women, we're taught that we should be strong and we should just be able to move on and not let anybody see things affect us. But that harms us when we are not able to acknowledge and we've been harmed. So I want to welcome you today, Dr. Zerri. So I'm going to turn it over for you to first introduce yourself, and then we'll go into the conversation.
All right. Well, hello, good afternoon. I'm assuming it's afternoon probably for everyone that's going to be joining. My name is Dr. Zerri Gross, also known as Dr. Z. I am the owner of Greater Self LLC, a whole life coaching and yoga company, as well as Dr. Zerri Gross Family and Counseling Incorporated, a psychotherapy company. So I want to thank Dr. Kamani for inviting me onto her platform to just share some of my experiences, to not normalize what has been happening, but to bring attention to and know that there are definitely, as you've already shared, like there's definitely healing beyond that and more things to come.
Absolutely. And what's really noteworthy too, Dr. Zerri, is that we're both therapists. And so sometimes people think that these things only happen in certain professions, but it happens across professions. So even for the healers are being harmed. And so we are here to talk about our experiences to, again, raise a level of awareness that this happens across the board. So Dr. Zerri, if you can share with the audience about a toxic work experience that you've had.
I will, well, there's this long list that comes up, and there's one that I think is unfortunately most.
That is sad, right?
It is, and that it continues to happen. But the one that stuck out most to me and had the biggest impact, that started a lot of shifts of me even being at this space now and trying to hold space for other people for that reason. I worked, and I don't want to name the location because there's definitely people
you don't have to.
where I worked at. there was a mental health agency that I worked for, and the role that I had at that location was to work on a school campus. So typically on that
Mm-hmm.
campus, it's children that, you know, have IEPs. It's a non-public
Mm-hmm.
day school. So there's a whole lot more just on that campus alone. Like when you start looking at different micro communities and cultures that
Mm-hmm.
take place. Um,
Right.
Working with the kids, clearly, like, you know, the work going in, so you get used to it, you adjust to that. But
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, what happened was having a supervisor that there are people that are really great at being managers of paperwork and processes.
Right.
Others also are really amazing at being leaders and maybe not great at
Mm-hmm.
managing processes.
Right.
You get a person who is only focused on the paperwork and is missing the human beings that are actually making the work happen for the paperwork to be
Yeah.
available.
Exactly.
To a point where at that location, I know that I was doing great work with the clients, the kids, right? I'm also aware,
Mm-hmm.
based on the demands and how they were given to me and how I was spoken to, there was a
Mm-hmm.
point, whatever, until it got to a space of I felt threatening my livelihood and my ability to be able to take care of my children. I was like, you know what? I I think we've hit a point that started
Hmm.
some. Then unfortunately, my younger sister passed away, and the
Oh,
way that
wow.
I within the couple of days in that space after, mind you, I've already gone out on mental health leave before at this location. I think
Hmm.
maybe even twice. So that's
Hmm.
as a therapist, I have to go out on leave because of depression, anxiety. So I can try to get myself together because I'm also trying to better myself in the process, raise two children, and
Right.
ensure clients that are expecting me to be there to support them.
Right.
At that point, and the way that that looked, I recognized I knew I needed to leave. I stayed because it was familiar. I believe that
Hmm.
the ugly I know, so why not stay here?
Oh, yes. Yes. I've heard that. How many times have we heard that with our clients, right? And then we
Yes,
end up doing it too. Mm-hmm.
absolutely. And then, like I
Yes.
said, based on those like kind of chain of events and things that kept happening, I realized there isn't any opportunity for growth anyways. The
Mm-hmm.
compensation is not supportive to any of the work that I am seriously doing and the results that are happening from it. And for
Mm-hmm.
the time, like literally that job was taken away from me being great. It's like, and I know that doesn't make sense maybe for some folks, but if your job is preventing you from actually enjoying your life,
Ooh.
something's not clicking.
Yes, right. So in the sense, Dr. Zeri, in terms of, you weren't growing, right? You weren't getting the type of support and acknowledgement for your work. And then it was robbing you of your joy because for us to do this work, we have a passion for this work. Like we're, driven to really help people and help elevate people and to connect, right? And so when your job starts taking the joy away from the work, it feels like, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? And then you start feeling like you're settling, right? And then that's a
But you
very
are.
disturbing. What was that?
I said, you definitely are settling at that point.
Yes, yes. And how many times, Dr. Zeri, do we tell our clients, do not settle, right? Like, know your worth, do not settle. And then as therapists, we end up doing the same thing. And then we're looking at ourselves like, what am I doing with my life? This is not why I went to graduate school. This is not why I went through all those sacrifices to get where I am. And I'm a Black woman. So, I had to go through a whole bunch extra to even get here. And I'm like, I got here for this. Mm-mm. This is not what I signed up for. So, Dr. Sarah, you talked about taking some mental health leaves, right? So you were aware, you were attuned to yourself, like, I'm not doing okay. I'm not feeling okay. And just, for my clients, I need to take a step away. And then for
Mhm.
myself and for my family, I need to take a step away. So what are some signs that the audience can kind of hear from you that they might be able to recognize within themselves? So, what were some of the signs that you recognized? I need to take a step back.
So fortunately, I have a good primary care physician for starters who I have him as well as my father. That's who I would vent to a lot. And I'm like, I can't believe this. So one, what I recognized in this moment, I was traumatizing my father, which meant he had to hold that space. And like I was going back to it. So I was venting frequently. There was a period where I went out drinking with everyone else that worked there just the same every single day, Monday through Friday, because we needed to like decompress, a relief, like, oh my God. First of all, I'm a lightweight, so it wasn't like a lot, but
I'm just saying, like, it drove you to drink. I remember Adelia was on, one of our guests, and she talked about the stress caused you to drink, right? Which is not healthy. So yeah, okay.
That was happening Monday through Friday.
Wow.
Other jobs. So like the weekends, I think by that time, like I really had to go work at those other jobs because clearly the ends weren't meeting. So drinking, and I'm not really a drinker. Also, I struggled to like get to sleep, and then I would be anxious the next day about how much sleep I didn't get. So there was this fear that I was going to like pass out at some point throughout the day because I didn't sleep. But then sadness of, oh my gosh, I can't get all my work done. I'm not doing this, or setting goals and expectations of myself without recognizing the limits that were already set in place. You're showing up to a you don't want to go to. So physically each morning it's like, ugh, I feel sick.
Dread. Yes.
And then I go and I have some great moments here and there with the clients. That's okay. I'm going to show up for them. Whatever they got from me was the scraps that was available. They didn't even get the greatest.
Wow.
And like I said, drinking frequently, calling out, and then getting to a point where I had to call out because it was too much. And then
it took over. It just kind of wiped you out. And it's interesting, Dr. Zerri, that she talked about that it was like this cycle. It was like this self-perpetuating cycle. So you felt anxious, then you couldn't go to sleep, then you felt bad that you felt anxious, and then you felt bad about what you were not giving your clients. And what's interesting, again, this is another example in which, as a therapist, we say certain things to clients, right? In terms of, being aware, taking care of yourself, self-care, right? But then we push ourselves so we get to a point where we have to call out. We have to, because we're just done. And you raise a really good point that I really hope that audience members listen to. When there's a toxic job, it spills over to our family lives in different ways, right? So it might be, like you said, venting to your father, venting to other people, our family, our friends, to the point they're worn out, they're exhausted, right? So they're like, I can't take anymore. And they get sick of hearing about these people in these situations because it hurts them to know that their loved one is being hurt. Right. And so it's this constant kind of like thing, like I need the support, but then I don't want to tell them. But then if I don't, then I'm holding all this inside. So I'm wondering, Dr. Zerri, when was the point that and then the financial issue, right? So you're you're doing all this stuff. And you're like, what am I doing this for? And it's like the hardest part of our jobs many times, it's not the clients. It is not the clients, right? So it doesn't matter what the clients are dealing with. It doesn't matter if you have a teenager who curses you out. It doesn't matter. The hardest part of the job are the adults, right? And their own issues, right? And so it's kind of like, I remember, and I don't know if this is the same site, Dr. Zerri, that we talked about, because I reached out to you because we're in the same coaching program with Dr. TK, right? And I know I mentioned Dr. TK before. I'll put her in the description section. And so we are in the same business coaching program. And I remember hearing you talk about a particular job. And I saw you post and you said, I'm resigning. But it was like pretty quick. And I was like, what? Like, oh, I'll put it in today or something. It was like a really quick turnaround. And so you said something at a certain point. You said the name of the agency. And I said, oh my God, that was the same agency that I had my internship at and where I had my first professional job. And it was not healthy then either. And so I was so fascinated to find out, like, are some of the same issues that I experienced there now? And you affirmed that they are, right? So the compensation is important too, because that's part of our worth, that we deserve to be compensated at a rate that we are worth. And many times in these jobs, we are not. So Dr. Zerri, when was the point where you just realized, I just, that notice that you sent on Facebook, what prompted?
So that was me cutting down the cycle time of previous employments. So that first one that I was speaking of, I think I spent maybe 8 or 9 years there. The next location was about 3, and this location was just short of 2 years.
Wow. So were they like back to back to back?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
Yes.
so these were different toxic work environments.
Yes. So the last one, I
Wow.
say that one wasn't because of my position there, which was
Mhm.
different. The position that you held there, it wasn't the same. Some of the challenges weren't exactly the same. So
Got it.
compensation was a concern.
Hmm.
The toxic, honestly, was more, unfortunately, the clients and their impact on my staff and me holding that space and then trying to help them. And then everyone shifting because of the pandemic and like, oh, we need to go back
Right.
to person. It's like, that doesn't make sense when we've been exceptional and excelling working remotely. And
Right.
part of even going there in the first place was what I wasn't going to do is what I had kept doing at the other locations, like the previous job, the job before that. So when it
Uh-huh.
started towards, oh, we need to get back to traditional and the way it is, and it's like, that's not in alignment with what I'm doing. I'm
Hmm.
aware wise that this isn't my highest potential. I'm also aware that it is using all my mental space and capacity, which means I'm
Ooh.
not in my own 2 businesses that I've already mentioned. I even closed one beginning this year because I just realized there's only 24 hours in a day.
Yes.
If my
Yes.
worried about a job that will replace me, will find
Yes.
and all the people that I did supervise and support, I gave them what I had left. What was going to come next,
Hmm.
contributing to a toxic environment. I didn't
Right.
contribution to something toxic, and I'm
Yeah.
not, that place was toxic, but I know my attitude was becoming toxic. So I was
Yeah.
like the person that's like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. That doesn't help everyone else that's still there.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And you know, it's so interesting. One of the things that I have been reading about with toxic jobs is one of the signs is that you start becoming like a different person, right? So you start in some ways like like the toxicity is kind of wearing off on you and it becomes kind of internalized in some ways. And so for many of us, we look at ourselves like, this is not even who I am. What is happening to me? And so you recognize that it's taking such a toll that it's turning you into a different person. And then you talked about so much mental energy was expended trying to be here, right? And then you have kids too, right? So, you know, in terms of what happens with them, right? Like we want to give to our children, but then the job is like kind of just sucking the life out of us. And so I'm wondering with you mentioned that you recognize there were some lessons learned in each of those 3 toxic job experiences. And what were the lessons learned that you said, I'm not, next job, I'm not dealing with it. So what were the lessons learned?
Um, the the first one was not being complacent and being comfortable with. I was fully aware at the first place and location, I could do whatever I wanted, which does not actually support me doing what I need to do for me.
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
Comfort that I had there, it did allow me to finish my doctorate degree, become certified as a yoga instructor, like do all these other things, but
Uh-huh.
I don't need that. I need to just be great. The second one,
Right.
what it allowed me to see is that unfortunately, just because a company is run kind of like a family and or by family, does that mean
Mm-hmm.
does that you need to maintain family drama? So like
Mm.
talk to each other is not, it's not actually helpful to have that open level of quote unquote candidness where technically if you weren't a professional, you would comfortably go outside and you would be fighting with people. That's
Wow.
best way.
So the professional boundaries were kind of blurred. Uh-huh.
They, again, for a good reason, but not the best way to do it. Like, and the
Yes.
last,
Yes.
what I recognize is at the point when I knew that I did not want to continue to do things, the longer, again, and I'm glad I left when I left, the longer
Mm-hmm.
I would have actively been I would have been one of the people contributing to an unhealthy work environment because of my
Yeah.
way I felt about it, which meant my
Right.
need, the clients couldn't get as much as they needed, and nobody's excited to work with me because they're like, she always says crazy stuff, or she's not nice. That's not helpful.
Right. And just not feeling good within yourself that you're not being your best
No.
self.
Yep.
Like seeing yourself kind of like going to the dark side. Like, wait a minute, that's not where I'm trying to go. Right. So I came to this profession for a certain reason. I'm trying to uplift people. But now I'm like the other people and making them feel bad. Like that's not what I want to do. So in terms of that job experience you told me about the first time, right? Because I confused it with the third one. I know it's like those multiple ones, right? So with the job experience you talked about before, what was that moment that you said, I got to get out of here?
Like the breaking point, I guess it was my younger sister passed away.
Mm-hmm.
I had let my supervisor know that I was going to apply for a management position because I was like, I'm here. Why not go ahead and attempt to do that?
Mm-hmm.
I went through one of the interviews, and then I did not leave, or I came back early from being with family because my sister lived like in Ohio, and I came back early because the two people in charge of scheduling interviews did not communicate with the person that I was going to have the next interview with. And I
That's
I,
a bad sign.
cut, like I said, I cut my time with my family in a grieving moment to still attempt to show up and move to a higher level. And when that happened, as, of course, after being told, oh, we can give you $1,000 more for having a doctorate degree, I'm like, everything I told you I would do when I came to this agency, I did that. And this $1,000 you think is sufficient?
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, I don't know,
Right.
another $100,000. So at that moment, like I it was I was gone the next month. And I was
Wow.
gone because someone called randomly, and the way life works in connections, someone I worked with at at that agency at the time,
Mm-hmm.
they work out together. Like once I started getting into like shifting from drinking every day and was like, you know what, I should probably stop. We used to work together. They happened to have a friend at another mental health agency, and when they called me, I didn't even know who they were. I didn't care. I was like, I don't care. I'll mop floors. What I'm not going to do is keep being here. So
Ooh.
fortunately, they offered me more than mopping floors, but even the way I went into that next one was like, this doesn't feel good, but I can't be there. So,
Wow. So you ran out of the hot fire, the burning house, and won, and then you went to another burning house.
yes.
And you knew it as you went in.
I knew that didn't feel right, and I just assumed that maybe because someone was, I don't know, like they were working on the day they're supposed to be off. Like I was like, maybe it's just not. And then of course as I got there, I was like, oh, okay, well, you know, I know
Yeah.
I did as much great work as I could do there, and then moved along also.
And what was the lesson learned in that second place, the
The
second site?
that I should not have been so, like, yes, I wanted to leave the other place,
Mm-hmm.
but the response that I got, I possibly shouldn't have taken the job at the offer that they presented to me. That when I counted
Got
in
it.
how much I would like to be compensated for, which I
Mm-hmm.
recognize still less than what I probably should have been compensated for what I was going to be offering and bringing, that
Mm-hmm.
when they said, this is what we think you're worth, just those words for me is like, well, that's unfortunate, and I should have declined the offer. But again,
Got it.
I was coming to work and I was like, if somebody looks at me wrong, if they just say one more thing, because I'm still hurt. I'm hurt. I'm fragile. I am trying to cry every day and still help, people that aren't having that same experience as me at that moment. So
Right, right, right. It's like you're trying to carry all these people and you have like you're struggling yourself, right? So it's like it's a struggle to even hold them and uplift them, and you just trying to get yourself together. So I'm wondering also, Dr. Zerri, you mentioned that at one of the sites, you had gotten your doctorate while you were there. They're like, "Oh, we'll give an extra 1,000,"
no,
right?
no,
You're like, "Wait a minute, what?"
I had to ask and was told I needed to submit documentation to support how I had accomplished so, which I chose not to. So,
Wow. Okay. Okay. So I'm wondering, after you did get your doctorate,
mhm.
was there any acknowledgement in the workplace that you had gotten this higher level of degree? You know what I mean? Like you had a higher level of experience, a higher level of respect. Did you get any of that?
My peers, because I supported them so well and we supported each other. But
Okay.
no, otherwise, no, I did not.
So none, nothing, no acknowledgement at all.
No.
Wow. Okay. Okay. And just in terms of just parallel experience, my experience was different because I came into the environment with my doctorate, but certain
Oh,
people within that environment would never
like,
even acknowledge that I had a
mhm.
doctorate. You know what I mean? Like they would never, it was just like, no big deal. Right. And so recognizing that in and of itself is a devaluing of your worth. Right.
Mhm.
And so wondering also, Dr. Zerri, can you share how did yoga factor in all this? Because you talked about the drinking and you're like, I realized that wasn't healthy. So I started working out. And then how did the yoga factor in? And then you became certified yoga instructor. How did that happen given everything that was going on? How did you do that?
Well, first of all, I utilized every hour of every 24 hours, apparently. But what happened was I realized at a certain point, so I became a therapist because I wanted to help people.
Mm-hmm.
Before, I'll be a special education teacher. And I was like, I don't have the attention span to be in one classroom all day long. I will not do that. And then like medical doctor, I was like, I don't want to learn all that stuff. I don't feel like it. So doing therapy, I was like, I can help people. Like if I'm not going to
Yeah.
be a cop and do hair, like, which I felt like that's another way. I was like, just be a therapist. Go do that. Like people get it. You
Okay.
don't get it. And then I started realizing like all that I was aware of that therapy could offer is to help with your mind and your thought process. And then I started,
Mm-hmm.
there's more happening to a person than just that component. Like it's their
Yeah.
mind, body, it's their whole entire self. And if you're going to help
Yeah.
somebody that, I also then was like, and you can kind of see certifications in the back. I was like, I'm gonna get some more certifications because so what if I have a doctorate degree? I'm gonna go learn more ways to help people do more things. So I did a nutrition coaching program.
Wow.
Um, and then I was like, oh, yoga. After I got over my mental block of yoga because there was some stuff that came with how I was raised and religion wise, and I was like,
Hmm.
no, thank you. Mm-mm. Once I
And
got
a lot of us can relate to that, right? But recognizing that yoga is not to challenge religion. It's a way to connect to our bodies and to the divine, but not in a way that it's like some like
it doesn't
cult or something like that.
it doesn't have to be like,
Right.
there's
Right.
many different aspects to it, which started to help me really illuminate on if I am helping people therapeutically, I'm not
Hmm.
only what I learned in the textbooks as a therapist. I am going to use
Yeah.
everything I learned. So
Yeah.
doing allowed me to, because I started lifting weights again, like and heavy lifting, like at that point I was already like, yeah, I'm buff. I got all these muscles and stuff. I lost all that flexibility from high school. And at least immediately on the surface, for me, that was just a way to access another part of my physical body and being able
Hmm.
to flexibility. And then I actually learned more about the concepts and kind of incorporated yoga as life in everything I do. So how I do therapy,
Awesome.
that kind of holistic space, how I do coaching comes from that kind of space, even though I may be speaking about specific things, me
Hmm.
pretty important principle to myself. the art of non-attachment allowed me to start recognizing what stuff I don't even need to hold on to. Like, that's not even. So yoga it allowed me to expand even more, and then do stuff like crystal healing and sound healing, and recognizing there's just so many more ways that you can heal yourself. Like, they're not.
Yeah. And you know what? Yeah, it's not just talk therapy, right? But you're also tapping into cultural forms of healing, right? So as a people, like, we, move and sing and all that kind of thing. Those are cultural forms of healing. And we know that many times trauma is within our bodies. And so yoga is a way to kind of discharge that toxicity. And so I'm wondering, Dr. Zerri, can you share with the audience the different because you got 8 million certifications, right? So tell the audience what services that you offer and how people would be able to contact you.
Okay, so despite the many, I recognize in focusing on just, a couple, it allows people to really get the most of what I have to offer and still get the incorporation of others. So what I am currently offering is Stress Less Whole Life Coaching Program, which is entitled Time Management for Therapists, because who doesn't want to help more therapists? And I recognize my time, when I started gaining better access and control over where my hours were being spent, it was easier to determine what money was, which was easier to determine what I cared about, and start intentional about doing things that were in alignment with my core values and accomplish in life. Hence starting cycle of being in places I don't need to be at.
Exactly. And detaching from them, right? Emotionally and physically.
All of it. Like,
yes. I release you. Bye. Go.
Right.
Bye, Felicia.
Great. Be amazing. And then also through my psychotherapy, like, I offer individual therapy. Pretty much that's where I'm gonna stick out for right now. Again, I'm being intentional, but individual therapy that helps people that are working through, like, transitioning from different careers and, like, recognizing their signs of, I need to leave my job, anxiety, PTSD, and just recognizing their life it's just not going where they want it to go.
Yes.
And it can't.
It's like a wake up call.
Yes.
And how will people contact? Oh, sorry. Go on. I'm sorry. Go on.
I was about to answer what you were about to ask me again. Well, through any of my links, like the link tree that I do have, that's greaterself_Dr.Z. People can reach me there. You can also go to my website, which is www.greaterself.org. I'm on IG, I'm on Facebook, I'm on TikTok, I'm on YouTube. Like, if you go to YouTube and look under Greater Self, you can find like a couple of yoga videos here or there. You can find some of the visuals for the podcast that I have, which is Live Out Loud, where I just share things that at this point, it's from 3 or 4 years ago that I'm manifesting finally now, that just some little quick on how to access your life in different ways.
And, that's powerful that you said that, is that sometimes we put it out there in terms of what we're manifesting, and we get impatient if it doesn't happen immediately. But knowing that we need to be patient, and sometimes things need to be in alignment for that to happen. And so I'm glad that you said that. And, you also talked about the YouTube channel. So there's so many things that you have available to support people, and particularly Black women, in terms of our healing from toxic work experiences. And so I just want to say again, Dr. Zerri, thank you for joining today. And really, I think it's really helpful too that our audience is able to hear that you not just had one toxic job experience, like many of us, you've had multiple. And I'm sure like many of us can relate to that. So, it's not just like that sense of shame, like this happened to me again, but it's also like, what am I learning from each of these different experiences? So that I know as I go in a different one, it's going to be different, right? But 2, you recognize at a certain point after the last one, you're like, I'm going to do my own. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't need to be accountable to somebody. I don't need somebody to tell me what I need to be doing. I got the credentials. I can do what I need to do. And so I think it's so important for Black women to know that we have choice, because sometimes when we get into these job environments and we feel like we're stuck, or our families tell us we got to stick it out, you got to get a good job and stay there for 30 years and retire and get that pension, but it's killing us. Literally, it's killing us. So you talked about it already. You said you took mental health leaves, right? So it's slowly killing us. And I hear a lot of times Black women say, well, I don't want to leave my job because of the benefits. And I'm like, what benefit? It's killing you. So what's the benefit there, right? So you're staying at a job that you want the so-called benefit of health insurance, but it's killing you. So you're probably, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it doesn't make any sense. And guess what? You can get your own health insurance and it's not that bad. It really isn't. I can attest to that. So again, it's so wonderful to be able to hear from another Black woman who is healing in process, right? Just as we're all healing, and recognizing that healing is a journey, right? So we have our ups and downs. Sometimes we go back and, different things. But my hope is that all of us are able to learn from what you shared, Dr. Zerri, in terms of detaching from toxic work environments, right? So doing that stuff, whatever you need to do, physically and mentally and spiritually, from those toxic jobs. Let's not bring those toxic jobs into our homes, right? To affect our home relationship, our family relationships, our friendships, because they don't deserve that much of our time. And we know that we deserve so much more. And so again, to the audience, I want to say thank you for tuning in. I hope that you were able to tune in to all the nuggets that Dr. Zerri had to share, and resources and services that she has available. I also have a job coaching program for Black women who are interested in leaving toxic jobs, but there's a lot of stuff, that residual stuff that you may have from that previous job that you need to process before you go to another job where you're more affirmed, right? Because we don't want that mess, that garbage, to go with you to your next opportunity. So if you want more information about that, please go to my website, liftingasweclimbconsulting.com. You can see all of the videos that I've done thus far on my YouTube channel, Lifting As We Climb Consulting, Wellness Services. I see my accountability partner just joined for Dr. TK. And so I just want to say to everyone, I appreciate all of you for tuning in. I want you to remember and know that you are not alone if you're in a toxic work environment. Number two, you will not be silenced. I will not be silenced. Dr. Zerri will not be silenced. We will not be silenced in these things happening, right? So, like people told me, you shouldn't say anything. You shouldn't say anything. You should just be quiet because you're going to get it. And I was saying to myself, first of all, I can't even do that. Like that makes no sense to me, right? And so what you're saying to me is that I should be complicit in my own oppression and the oppression of other people. I cannot do that. And so I want to encourage more of us to stand up and say, no, this is wrong, but also recognize that there might be some pushback in that. And even if there's pushback, guess what? It's better than what you're experiencing with this toxic job. So I just want to say that to everybody. I know, because I have experienced it, that it is clearly much better than staying someplace where your values don't align with who you are, the work environment, and it's slowly killing you. Okay. So again, Dr. Zerri, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to the audience for tuning in. I hope to see you next Monday as we continue these conversations. And we will also talk about coming soon, will be more conversation about how do we reconnect to our joy, right? So as Black women, us having joy and being able to connect to joy is so revolutionary. So we're going to be talking about that soon also. So I want to say to everyone, have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye.